So welcome to another review from Ridercamtv, and today we're fortunate with our friends from Ocean BMW to have been able to take out the BMW F800GT. Now the F800GT is an 800cc motorbike with a belt drive. I'd say it's more sporty looking. It kind of looks like an old RS, because the model's quite old now, I guess. First impressions, I've only done a couple of miles on it so far. First impression are that it's quite a nice ride. I think the seat could be a little bit more comfy, although it's okay. You are sitting forward, but I don't feel that I'm having my weight thrust forward on my wrists, so that's quite nice. The throttle feels quite responsive, but it is quite jerky. If I let off with the accelerator, let right off, it is quite jerky. It's quite a comfy bike to ride. I'm not getting hit in the face too much with too much wind, but it is quite strange seeing that the wing mirrors are so far in front. The gearbox feels quite together, it feels quite pronounced. There's not a lot of movement on the gear shift, which is quite reassuring, really. It's either in the gear or not in the gear. There doesn't seem to be any fluffiness on the pedal, so you really do know that you're going to be in the gear, or when you're in the gear. The brakes seem to be quite good, and they've got the linked brakes like many of the other BMWs, and they seem to work quite well. A little bit spongy, I'd say, especially on the back brake. The pedal goes down quite a way before it actually grips on, but that might be just the difference between this bike and what I'm used to on my adventure. The controls at the front of the bike are good. Got a massive rev counter, an analog speedo, which is quite good. It's not wavering around. The pointer's quite precise. Got a digital display just under the GoPro, which has got up to half a tank of fuel. It's got the temperature gauge, got the gear selector, it's got the time and how many miles the bike has done. But I do find it really quite stable. I wasn't sure that I'd find it as stable as I find it. Coming from an adventure where you really do feel like you're in control of the bike, and I know that sounds really weird, but this bike is really stable. I've not ridden a bike where you sat forward, almost like a sports type feel, for quite some time, and it does feel as though I'm in control. At very low speeds, really easy to handle. It's not very heavy at all. It seems to pick up very well. Yeah, it's got quite a good pickup. And the thing is, in the UK, the speed limit, the maximum speed limit you can travel on the road without attracting fines, of course, is 70. And I get the feeling that this bike would do 70 all day long and wouldn't be a problem. And I'm doing 30 in third gear. It's rather windy up here, but 30 in third gear, and it's just trickling along. Now the switch gear is really pronounced, as you would expect with any BMW. It's the same switch gear as across the range. However, this bike hasn't got everything. It's not got cruise control. It's got a few functions with the suspension. It's got the indicators, obviously, and it's got the horn. It's got heated grips, which are two-stage heated grips, as BMW like to fit on their bikes now. But other than that, it's quite a basic bike, and that's the feel that I get. I would say that this bike would, if I was going to buy one of these bikes, the reason I would buy one of these bikes would just be purely to commute to and from work, or to go out on a ride for a Sunday afternoon. I don't think that this would suit me as a daily driver for doing everything that I need to do. I just don't think that it would do everything I want to do, and it is very, very bouncy. Very bouncy indeed. So we're coming down to our favourite place in Falmouth, just so we can give you a bit of scenery around the bike. And the bike is really stable at slow speeds. I think the style of the bike, it almost gives you the impression that you're riding a sports bike.
Yeah. It does remind me of the Honda VFR.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's almost like the predecessor to the RS, isn't it?
Yeah.
The RS seems to be more newer.
Yeah, it's a nice colour scheme on it.
Yeah, it's got a nice colour. It's almost like a matte silver, this one.
What does it ride like?
Surprisingly, it rode really well. At slow speed, really controllable. And I thought that I was going to be right forward like a real sports bike with all my weight on my wrist. Hardly any weight on my wrist at all. I felt sat in the right position but thrown forward a little bit, but not enough to notice anything at all.
Was it comfortable on your knees?
Sorry?
Was it comfortable on your knees?
It's
Obviously you're an old man now, you see, so...
for me, it's not a bike for me already. I know it's not a bike for me. I think if I was going to buy one, it would just be to get to and from work. For me, I don't think I'd buy one to go out on tours, but for different people, different things.
Well, as I was saying before, I was on a tour last year, and there was a guy had one of these. He was on his own,
Yeah.
and it was really good. It was a nice bike. I mean, it did really well. Obviously, on the flat and the straight, it was really good, but round the bends as well, it was quite good as well. And
Yeah.
I think he was a Rosberg advanced rider, so he was very competent on it. But his panniers were really small.
Yeah, I mean the rack for the panniers already there, which is good, and it sits on there, but they are really tiny. But get this, they're about 500 quid from BMW.
Really?
They're really expensive, just for plastic boxes, and I don't think, probably somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but they just come in one colour, just black.
Well, he had a white bike, and I can't remember what colours they were, but I mean, he had to have a lot of stuff stacked up on the seat behind him.
Yeah.
But it was, you know, it was all right. He was quite happy with it. And I think he got about 170 miles out of the tank. I can't remember how big the tank is on it.
See, this one's 213 kilos wet,
Right.
but I didn't think that felt 213 kilos. Bear in mind our bikes are 263, aren't they,
Yeah.
or thereabouts. This felt lighter, but it didn't feel like it was that light, if that makes sense. And it's only got a 15-litre tank.
Right, okay.
And I remember, because one of my friends had one of these, that on the speedo or on the instruments, it tells you how much fuel you've got, but not until you get below half a tank.
Oh, right.
It's really weird. Do you have a look? See, it tells you that you've got fuel there,
Yeah.
half a tank, and the arrow tells you that you've got more than half a tank. But it's not until you get to half a tank and below that you start to see the fuel go down, which I find quite a strange concept, really.
Okay.
You know, on ours and most bikes you can see all of the fuel, but on this one you can't really see very much.
Perhaps it's quite a limited. Perhaps the screen is quite old.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's, you know, and if we were just talking to Ocean BMW and in Falmouth, and they were saying that they are updating it.
But the feel that I get is it's a really nice bike, almost like the predecessor to many of the other bikes that look like it, like the RS, the XR, where they've evolved into. But this does feel old and dated now. I've never ridden a bike with a belt on it, and it's really quite smooth. It's got a lot of power, certainly enough for day-to-day stuff, but it just feels like it's an old design, especially where you're looking.
Making it sound like you hate it.
I don't hate it. Do you know, it's really strange. Other than riding out of the showroom and thinking, "Oh, my hip's going to fall apart," because that really did hurt. Because I wasn't expecting to have my legs up so far,
Yeah.
and it's quite cramped. But a couple of minutes in, it kind of felt comfortable. My body had kind of adjusted. I mean, it's got a twisty knob for the suspension so that you can adjust it. It's not got the dynamic.
Is that a technical term? A twisty knob for the suspension?
Yeah, a twisty knob.
We're fantastic bike experts. Oh, and it's got some
Twisty knob. But that is like a twig though, isn't it? Don't you think, Mark? I mean, that really is a twig. And if you hold the bike up, see how far off the floor that is. That's a good 3-4 inches, and it's really weird because it's so thin, it doesn't look like it's going to hold the bike up.
The oil dipstick is here.
Oh yeah. How long is that?
Don't know where that goes.
That goes down onto the floor, doesn't it?
Standby side stand if the other one breaks. It looks almost the same size.
It is too. Now the belt, I would imagine, is really low maintenance, isn't it?
I would imagine it was. I mean, if I was going to have a bike and I had a choice between a chain or a belt,
Yeah.
I'd go for a belt.
Yeah. Because
It's less messy.
well, thing that I don't like about the chain is all the oil flicking up everywhere. Well, it's funny because it sounds like we're being negative, but it's just not the bike for me.
No.
But it'll be the bike for a lot of people, and there's a lot of good points about it. You know, you've got the ready-made rack for your luggage, the seat's comfy, you can fill up without a problem if you've got a tank bag. All of the instruments are really easy and clearly able to be viewed. All the switch gear is really pronounced, the same as switch gear is across the range of BMWs. And strangely enough, I was talking about these wing mirrors. When I got on the bike, it felt like they should have been on the front of a bonnet of a Ford Anglia or something. But riding along, surprisingly, I don't get any shoulder, elbow or anything in it. Because they're out that little bit further, the visibility is really good.
Quite big actually. They're big compared to Adventure's mirror, is it? I would imagine they're probably the same actual square meterage if you want. But
Yeah.
just a different shape. But they do look okay.
And the wind protection's good. But certainly very responsive. The power is certainly there, but it likes to be, it's almost like there's a sweet spot to be doing 30, almost like second gear. If I got to third gear, it's kind of a little bit low revving, and we're down to 2,000 revs, which is quite a bit for that gear, but it just feels like it's not as responsive as second. So, but it's certainly got a sporty feel to it. It certainly feels like you could nip in and out of traffic, especially whiz in through and filter through traffic. That you've got all the speed that you need. I think for me, if I was doing 2,000 or 3,000 miles through Europe or on a big tour, it would do. I'm not saying that it wouldn't do. But for some, they might find it just a little bit basic on what they want out of a bike. And because it's only got a 15-litre tank, it'd be interesting to see what the range of the tank would be. But it's certainly a very nimble bike, and it's certainly a very controllable bike. And like I say, once my legs and hips had got used to being in such a higher position than what I'm used to, it's actually quite a comfy bike. And because of that position, my knees are naturally hugging the fuel tank, or hugging where the fuel tank would be, but it's naturally hugging the tank, giving me the feeling that I've got just that little bit of control over it. Do you know, the seat is really comfortable. I don't like the fact that the front suspension it's almost like rock hard, and I'd liken the suspension on the front almost to the suspension on the very early 1200 RTs, where with that telelever system, that going over rumble strips was almost like knocking your teeth out. And I do get the feeling that this is quite a hard ride, a little bit too hard a ride for me, I must say. I must admit, it's quite a pleasure to ride. Once you can get over the fact that the position of your knees is slightly, I mean, it's much more of a sports feel to it, so you're much more hunched over like a sports rider would be. Once you get used to that sort of feeling, the feeling that you're on a bike that is quite a hard ride. Some people will like a hard ride, some people will like a really soft ride. Then it's actually quite a nice bike. And it's quite flickable. Around this roundabout, it's quite flickable. So let's see. You know, that's third. It's got enough power, you know. It's certainly got enough power. I wouldn't say that it's got a huge amount of power, but it's certainly got enough power for what you need. I mean, that's 60 miles an hour. Certainly very, very comfortable. And it's just purring along. I've got no feedback on the bars in terms of vibration. I guess that's down to the dampers, but it's really quite smooth. And on a smooth road, the bike is really smooth. You feel part of it. And we'll see how we get around this roundabout, because we're going to do a 360 here. We'll see how we get through, get round. You know, it just falls into the bend. Yeah, got no problem with that. Just falls into the bend. Not bad at all. So in terms of control, really, really good control that you have over the bike. So that's 40, let's get up to 60. So it takes a few seconds to get to 60. But like I said, it's a smooth road. Now that I am up at 60, given it is quite a windy day today anyway, but that I do feel that screen is in the wrong place for me. I'm getting a lot of wind into the full head of my helmet, and I can feel my helmet pushing back. So for me, if I was to buy this, definitely would have to get a taller screen, because I think if you were doing a few thousand miles, after a while of your neck constantly being pushed back, I think you'd have quite a sore neck. Also getting a lot of wind on my shoulders as well. So a big shout out to Ocean BMW. Both Martin and Greg have enabled us to be able to bring this review to you. If you do like the video, give us a big thumbs up. Remember to subscribe, and if you'd like to, hit that little bell button. It will tell you when our videos have come out and you won't miss any. But thanks to BMW, and we're just going to go and drop the bike off.